And then this lesson is 1.04b, the distributive property. So make sure, if you're needing algebra help, that you subscribe to my YouTube channel at Mr.KeithE.Chu. You can also follow me on TikTok at Mr. KeithE.Chu and on Instagram at Mr. KeithE.Chu. Make sure you like this video and subscribe and follow depending on which format you're watching this under. So the distributive property is a very important algebra property. It is a property that says if you have a number outside the parentheses, that means you're multiplying that by 3, and you have either numbers or variables inside. So we're going to do an example with numbers, an example with variables. So on the first one, I always want my students to understand that you have to distribute. That's what distributive means. The 3 over every number inside the parentheses. So this is 3, and outside the parentheses mean times. 3 times 2. And you can write that with 3 and then parentheses around the 2. We're adding here. So I put the plus sign there. 3 times 4. That is what the distributive property means. Doesn't mean any more than that. So, if it's just variables, you do the same thing. The number outside the parentheses means I'm going to distribute it using multiplication across everything inside the parentheses. So A times B is AB. I have a subtraction sign this time. You're either going to have a plus sign or a subtraction sign. The 8 times the C is AC. You could have had that number on the outside. It wouldn't have been any different if I would have written this 2 plus 4 with the 3 on the outside. You would just distribute the 3 times the 2 plus the 3 times the 4. And you end up getting the same answer. We just have these switched. And the same thing is true for the B minus C. All right, so now let's look at some examples. Example 1. It's where we're going to verify using PEMDAS on the left, and then we're going to use the distributive property on the right. So you're going to use the distributive property on the right, PEMDAS on the left. So let's just have a problem. 3 times 4 plus 8 is my problem. So when I use my PEMDAS, would you add in the parentheses or multiply first? Well, you do the parentheses first. And I did already have an earlier video about PEMDAS. It was lesson 1.02b. So you could go back in, and after you subscribe to my YouTube channel and see those, if you follow me on TikTok and you click on my profile, you would see that. And then 3 times 12 is 36. So that is when you're verifying this using the PEMDAS. Now what happens with the distributive property? Do you remember what happens here? Well, let's go ahead and rewrite it here. It should equal itself, right? So we do the distributive property. 3 times 4 plus 3 times 8. So that equals 12 plus 24, which equals 36. So they do equal, it does verify. All right, that is example 1, and you'll have 2 problems I'll challenge you with on your own whenever we finish, and then there'll be a link to a video that explains how to work those problems. So all you do is verify that in problems 1 and 2 in our challenge problems at the end. All right, so now let's do example 2. And you'll have 2 challenge problems, problems 3 and 4, that will be similar to this. So if I have 2x plus 4, and again, remember I told you, you could have the number to the right of the parentheses. We want to use the distributive property to simplify it. So you remember what we said you do? You're going to take the number and multiply it by the first term inside the parentheses, and then we'll add it because of the addition sign inside the parentheses, the number times the second term. So I have my 2x times 3. I use my plus sign. My 4 times 3. 3 times 2x is 6x. 4 times 3 is 12. Now, could I use PEMDAS to simplify this? No, PEMDAS is something that's used in arithmetic or in simplifying when you have no variables. But in an algebra problem, when we have variables and then constants, I cannot simplify that anymore. So, when you try these problems I'm going to give you in a minute, I'll write them up here and then you can write them down on a piece of paper. There will be a link that will come up right here that'll be these problems worked, and it'll be called lesson 1.04c. And then down here will be a playlist of all of my unit 1 algebra lessons and videos up to this point. So let's erase this, and I'll write down your challenge problems up here. So the first one's verify using PEMDAS on left and distributive property on right. So you heard Bear coughing, and he says, don't get choked up over this algebra. Just follow Bear algebra, and you'll see how easy the distributive property really is. That is Bear. So problem 1 is 3 times 7 minus 3. There's Bear still wanting you not to get all choked up. Use PEMDAS on the left, distributive property on the right to verify that the two sides are true. And then we have 12 plus 14 with a 6 on the outside. Then we will have 2 problems where you just simplify using the distributive property. That'll be number 3, which is 4 times 3y plus 2. Then number 4 will be negative 4 times 3 minus 6x. So try those 4 problems, and there'll be a link right here that shows you how these are solved, and then you can check them. There'll be another link down here with a playlist. There'll be a subscribe button over here, and that is when you're watching on YouTube. It will be part 2 on TikTok. So make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Follow me on TikTok and Instagram. I'm Mr. Chu. This is Bear Algebra. And we just did the distributive property and made it easy. See you next time. Make sure you subscribe and follow.